What is this, seriously? It can't be helped but to shout like that, because there were the words of a dismissal notice there. I was told not to contact him while he's on a business trip, but I can't just not contact him about this. I hurriedly called Martin. No answer. I call over and over again. At the same time, I send messages, but there's no response. The time was just a little past noon. Maybe he can't answer because of work. But I have to somehow get in touch. After persistently calling, he finally answered. Hello, Martin? Didn't I tell you not to contact me during work? Martin snaps as soon as he answers. I'm sorry, but it's urgent. There's a certified letter from the company. Don't contact me during a business trip, no matter what. Martin is completely unwilling to listen. What are you planning to do if a contract gets ruined because of you? It seems he won't listen at all. Yes. He received a dismissal notice, but maybe I'll keep quiet about it, as a result of not contacting at all. My name is Tiffany, 30 years old. I work from home as an industrial designer. To put it simply, an industrial designer is a designer who designs the shape of products. I used to work from home as an employee of a major company, but now I've become independent and am freelancing. Thanks to that, work is going smoothly, and I'm earning a considerable income. At the age of 26, I married Martin, whom I'd met through a friend's introduction. I continued working for the company even after getting married, but when I got pregnant with our son Carl, who is now 2 years old, I switched to working from home. After that, I worked from home, and Martin worked at the office. After taking maternity leave and parental leave, I returned to work from home, but my salary was a bit lower than when I was commuting. Still, it's easier on both the mind and body than commuting and leaving the child in daycare. Our company has really created a great system. However, it seems Martin was unhappy about my reduced salary. Wouldn't it be better to go to the office, even if we had to put Carl in daycare? We have a mortgage to pay, and with the recent economic downturn, there's no sign of improvement in the company's performance. That's true, but if we put Carl in daycare, we'll need to pay for that, and I think it'll end up being about the same. When we got married, we took out a joint loan, meaning we both paid the mortgage to buy our new home. Renting is like throwing money away. It's better to stretch a bit and buy, so it's easier in the long run. Martin works at a securities company and is quite particular about finances and assets. Convinced by his argument and thinking it made sense, I agreed, and we bought a condo. Located in Brooklyn, convenient for commuting, it was a bit expensive, but we were told it would appreciate in value over time, so we took the plunge. Everything was peaceful until I started working from home. Then, Martin began to show his dissatisfaction more frequently. It seems, from what I've heard, it's not so much about the income, but rather that he thinks it's unfair I'm the only one staying at home. If the amount ends up the same, you should go to work too. Staying at home leads to a lack of exercise and becoming isolated from society, right? While that may be true, after my first childbirth and now raising a child for the first time, it's better for my body to take it easy. Even if we wanted help, both Martin and I are from the countryside and our parents' homes are far away. It's hard to get help from either side. When I talked about such things, Martin muttered something that gave me a glimpse into his true feelings. It's always you getting the easy way out. I want to stay home too. But our jobs are different. I'm a designer, and he is in sales. I can finish my designs on the computer, and often just sending the data is enough. But Martin's job can't be done from home. That's true, but still, it feels unfair that only you get to stay in such a nice house. Hearing those words, I was surprised. What do you mean by all to yourself? This is your home, my home, and Carl's home, right? After all, we're both paying the mortgage, so the rights should be split evenly. Hearing such childish remarks from Martin, now a father, I started to feel more worried. Carl grew up smoothly, and I was able to continue my work smoothly while taking care of Carl. Then, I decided to take the plunge and become independent. My work was well regarded, and I started receiving offers from work acquaintances saying, "Won't you do our work as well?" However, around that time, Martin started coming home late and working on weekends more frequently. "It's a recession now. I have to work a bit harder, or else my sales allowance will just keep decreasing." Martin would say that, and then sigh as if it was a dig at me. "Must be nice for those who can work leisurely at home. No need to get caught in traffic to commute. Ugh, I'm jealous." It's as if he thinks I'm just lounging at home while he's the only one working hard. But that's not the case. I'm doing household chores and raising our child while working from home. I have a lot of work that can be done from home, but there are also times I need to go out for work or other necessities. I'm certainly not just relaxing and playing at home. I couldn't take it anymore and confronted him about it. "That's why I'm not just playing around. Why can't you understand that? I'm paying my share of the mortgage too." "Oh, is that so?" Martin cut off my words, and his face turning red, retorted, "I'm just a no-good provider, right? I can't even take out a mortgage on my own, with my meager salary." "Nobody's saying that." "Unlike the talented designer, I have to bow my head to unpleasant clients every day just to get my salary." No matter what I say, it's the same response. He only takes everything in the worst possible way. I was completely exhausted and eventually stopped saying anything to Martin. I gave up, thinking it was pointless. And gradually, I began to wonder if there was any point in us living together. But Martin is Carl's father, and taking Carl's father away from him seemed selfish, and that feeling stopped me. Maybe because I stopped saying anything, Martin began to behave more freely, and eventually, he hardly contributed any money at all. Though it was supposed to be a joint loan, now it's as if I'm paying it all by myself. It's tough, but honestly, with my current income, I could manage to pay the mortgage and live on my own. Martin probably knows this, and that's why he behaves this way. If we were at risk of losing the house because we couldn't pay the mortgage, I think he would contribute something. Martin has that calculating side to him, and around that time, I started to harbor a suspicion. Maybe Martin has another woman, and he's spending his money on her. If that's the case, I'll have to make a decisive move, of course after making sure he pays what he owes. I wanted to find some evidence, but I couldn't think of a way. The most reliable method would be to hire a detective agency, but that would be costly. It would be easier if I knew the date, time, and place of their meetings. But with just a vague suspicion that there might be someone, I can't even imagine how much it would cost. I'm managing for now, but if Martin and I were to separate, there would be future uncertainties. I'd like to save as much money as possible. While I was confused and spending my days, a certified letter arrived from the company. Martin was on a business trip, having left for a 2-night, 3-day trip yesterday. Why would the company send something like this on such a day? I was even more puzzled, but curious. I decided to open it. Telling myself it might be urgent and I need to contact them immediately, I opened the envelope. What is this? Seriously? It can't be helped but to shout like that, because there were the words of a dismissal notice there. I was told not to contact him while he's on a business trip, but I can't just not contact him about this. I hurriedly called Martin. No answer. I call over and over. At the same time, I send messages, but there's no response. The time was just a little past noon. Maybe he can't answer because of work, but I have to somehow get in touch. After persistently calling, he finally answered. "Hello, Martin?" "Didn't I tell you not to contact me during work?" Martin snaps as soon as he answers. "I'm sorry, but it's urgent. There's a certified letter from the company." "Don't you dare contact me during a business trip." Martin is completely unwilling to listen. "What are you planning to do if a contract gets ruined because of you?" I hear someone's voice in the background over the phone. Maybe. I quickly press the record button. Listen, I'll say it one more time. Do not contact me. Understand? He insists it's important, but he just won't listen. Yes. He received a dismissal notice, but maybe I'll keep quiet about it. I then hung up the phone. It was Martin who didn't listen, even though I said it was important. Besides, it seemed like it wouldn't make much of a difference, even if Martin lost his job. As a designer in a technical profession, I've been steadily building up my track record. When I first started working from home, I was an employee. As an employee, I had the duty to report to the company every day how many hours I worked and such. I also needed to inform them when taking a day off. But now I'm independent, handling work not just from my former company, but also from other clients. In other words, I'm completely freelance. Since becoming freelance, I've taken on many jobs and am earning several times more than when I was an employee. I could leave Martin behind without any problem. But it still feels frustrating to end things this way. That phone call earlier, that was probably a woman's voice. Listening carefully to the recording, I could somewhat make out what was being said. Unaware that the call was from me, she was making requests to Martin. I couldn't hear what item she was talking about, but she was asking him to buy something for her birthday. Probably her birthday is coming up soon. This might be a clue to finding out who Martin's companion is. If I can narrow down the clues a bit more, I'll consider hiring a detective agency. Just a bit more patience is needed. The next night, Martin returned from his business trip. You know I told you not to contact me during work, right? Because of that, I almost lost a contract. I'm sorry. I wonder with whom and what kind of contract he was in the midst of making. Maybe a birthday purchase contract? I didn't show it on my face, but I laughed inside. As long as you understand, it's fine. Now I'm going to take a shower and go to bed. Okay. I quietly watched as Martin prepared to shower and go to bed. Once Martin was asleep, I sneakily checked his mobile phone. As expected, it was locked. So, I gently took the mobile phone, used Martin's finger while he was sound asleep, and unlocked it. What I found was revealing. Pictures of Martin getting cozy with the same woman. Not just pictures, but of course, videos as well. Some of them were decisive evidence. There were also message exchanges, detailing when, where, and how they spent their time together. Maybe he thought I'd never find out about his affair. He really underestimated me. I copied the data from Martin's mobile phone to my computer. Carefully, I put the mobile phone back in its place and started to ponder my next move. I'll make sure he experiences hell. First, I need to uncover the identity of the woman. Who she is and where she's from. I can't tell just from photos and nicknames. I'll start by checking the data. The next day, Martin left the house as if nothing had happened, heading to work. It would be good if he could carry on with his work as usual. After seeing Martin off, I took my time to reread the certified mail. It didn't contain detailed explanations. I'm not sure what he did, but it seems the dismissal is final. This is a bit troubling. If Martin loses his job, it'll be harder to get him to pay alimony and child support. The money he hasn't been contributing to the house has likely been spent on that woman. I want to recover as much of it as possible. Of course, I'll also make the other woman pay compensation. Now, I'm going to closely examine the data transferred to my computer. Reading their exchanges of love was unpleasant, but there had to be some clue in there. I remember you need a phone number to register for most social media accounts. When I checked, I found it. Someone registered in Martin's phone as a business contact turned out to be the affair partner, it seems. I'm not sure if it's her real name, but she's listed as Abigail. I picked out the necessary information and compiled the data. Now, what to do with this data? Should I consult a detective agency or go straight to a lawyer with it? While pondering, an idea suddenly came to me. I'll do what they did in a drama I watched. You know, I've been thinking of going back to my parents' house for a bit.
Why?
It's nothing serious, but Mom is taken ill with a cold, and Dad can't manage the housework alone. Martin glanced at me, pretending to think it over. He probably thought it better to make a show of reluctance than to agree too quickly.
It can't be helped. How long do you plan to be gone?
At least 2 or 3 days. I looked up at Martin, as if gauging his reaction. Looking down at me, Martin seemed pleased with my flustered demeanor, his face softening into a smile.
Well, it's filial duty. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. My demeanor seemed to satisfy Martin.
So when are you leaving?
I wanted to leave today, but it's already too late, so I'll go first thing tomorrow morning. I'll leave right after you go to work.
I see. Got it. Take care on your trip.
Martin was unnervingly kind. This should get him to act exactly as I anticipated. The next morning, Martin left the house as usual. Despite being told he's been fired, it's curious where he's going. But I needed him to leave the house at least once so I could prepare. So please go ahead and leave. After sending Martin off with an apologetic demeanor, I started my preparations. I left Carl with a trustworthy babysitter, someone who has looked after him several times before work or errands, someone I can leave him with in confidence. Then I sent a message to Martin. I just boarded the Amtrak. Really sorry for the inconvenience. I'm planning to be back in 3 days.
Martin replied almost immediately. Got it. Be careful.
That night, as expected, Martin brought Abigail to our house. I had hired a professional to capture the whole scene as evidence. I knew that the data already on Martin's mobile phone would be advantageous for the divorce, but I really wanted to punish them both. On the first day of setting the trap, Martin returned home with Abigail in the afternoon and didn't come out until the next evening. And that night was the main event. It was a bit nerve-wracking not knowing what time they would return, but I was pretty sure they would come back. Late that night, just before the date changed, the two of them returned. They seemed to be tipsy, giggling and frolicking as they entered the bedroom and tumbled onto the bed entwined. Now's my chance. Welcome home! As I finished my greeting, I flung open the closet door with a bang. Abigail screamed, "Whoa!" and rolled off the bed. In her fall, she hit her head on the cabinet beside the bed. Serves her right.
What?
Martin didn't fall, but was frozen in a bizarre pose on the bed. He was lying on his back, arms stretched out in front of him as if to shield himself. It seems my sudden appearance startled him, and he inadvertently pushed Abigail away. That must be why she went flying off and hit her head. Welcome home, dear. Martin, still in his awkward pose, could only stare at me with wide eyes. What a foolish sight he made. Oh, we have a guest, I see. I slowly stepped out of the closet and stood beside the bed, looking down at Martin with a broad smile. The unconscious woman was of no concern to me.
You... what?
And who might this lady be? It's quite rude to come into someone's home and sleep in such a place, isn't it? Martin was at a loss for words. Well, never mind. Let's have a little chat, shall we? I took out my mobile phone and contacted someone.
Who are you calling?
Oh, just someone. I ended the call with a hum and coldly looked down at Abigail. What shall we do with her?
What do you mean, what?
Should we wake her up or let her sleep? Martin glanced back and forth between me and Abigail, then fell silent, looking troubled. Well, that's fine. We don't want any trouble, so let's wake her up, shall we? Hey, you! I shook her gently, and Abigail groaned as she woke up. Hey, you! Abigail remained dazed for a moment, but eventually the reality of the situation dawned on her, and she froze. We're going to have a discussion now, so come over here, please. Abigail stayed frozen, not responding. Come here, please. Yes. It seemed she replied reflexively when I spoke a bit more sternly. I called them to the dining room table and had them sit side by side at the table. Honestly, I didn't want to let you sit here, but well, you've already made yourselves quite at home, so I guess the table is fine. Of course, I didn't serve any tea for hospitality. You'll answer what I'm going to ask you now. If you answer honestly, I might consider being more lenient. What do you mean by lenient? Like reducing the compensation in the divorce proceedings, perhaps? Hearing the word compensation, I could see the color drain from their faces. So, when did it start? Huh? When did you two start this relationship? If you don't answer honestly, the compensation will be doubled. Martin's gaze became unfocused. Abigail kept blinking excessively. When? Well, today. Today was the first time, right? Yes. There, one lie received. Really? Yeah, we met for the first time today, and you weren't here, so got carried away and just... Yes. It seemed they had decided to stick to that story. That's a lie. What? The doorbell rang. Ding ding! And the people I had called arrived. I left Martin and Abigail waiting and invited the newcomers into the dining room. Entering the room were a man and a woman, both in suits. Please proceed. With my cue, the woman took out a large envelope and the man opened up a laptop. Here you go. The screen displayed images of Martin and Abigail from the previous day. They were seen entering a room together, followed by footage from inside the room. Hey, this is voyeurism. That's right, it's a crime. While the two protested loudly, the investigator provided a clear explanation. Certainly, secretly filming someone is considered voyeurism. However, if it's for the purpose of gathering evidence of infidelity, it can be permissible. Moreover, these are professionals, meaning the investigators took on the job upon request, making it not a crime as voyeurism. Understood? So this isn't a crime. The two fell silent, looking down. Now, I'll ask again. Since when? They didn't respond. Since when? Today was the first time was a lie, wasn't it? Well, yesterday, Martin began, then raised his head to meet my gaze as he continued. I'm sorry, what I said earlier. It actually started yesterday. We drank too much, and one thing led to another. Yes, I'm sorry. They both said this, bowing their heads in apology. So you admit to the affair? Yes, sorry, but it was just once. I'm sorry, it's true. It seemed they were trying to settle the matter with that explanation. As I said earlier, if it's a lie, the compensation will be doubled. It's not a lie. Please believe me. It's true. I then brought over my own laptop and placed it in front of them. If yesterday was the first time, then who are these people? Displayed on the screen were photos and videos copied from Martin's mobile phone, along with their exchanges on social media. There, another lie. Hey, you can't just take stuff from someone's mobile phone. That's a crime. Too bad, this isn't a crime either. You heard the reason earlier, right? Unable to retort, the two sat in silence. Eventually, they resignedly told everything. Their relationship began 2 years ago, around the time Carl was born. Martin listed various reasons, saying he felt lonely and neglected after the child was born, and I stopped paying attention to him. It was during such a time that he met Abigail, and he ended up maintaining the relationship with her until now. He said it was a momentary lapse in judgment and that he is remorseful. He wasted time talking about such things. Abigail looked at Martin with disbelief. That would be expected. After all, he had always been sweet-talking, but now he refers to it as a momentary lapse with an affair partner. Abigail, with tears welling up in her eyes and looking frustrated, admitted to when the relationship began, but remained silent about everything else. It seemed pointless to ask anything more at this point. We'll discuss this further with both Abigail's parents and Martin's parents on another day. I thanked the investigators and sent them off, then told Abigail to leave. Could you leave as well? Maybe stay at a hotel or somewhere. You might still catch up with Abigail. No?
I wouldn't do that.
Well, either way, just leave. I also made sure to send Martin out. Later, I arranged a meeting with both our parents. The in-laws were apologetic, continually bowing their heads, while my parents silently seethed. I showed them all the evidence, including the interactions from that day when I caught the two. So I want to get a divorce. I'll keep custody of Carl and will demand child support and compensation for the divorce. Martin protested the amount I proposed, but I had no intention of compromising. You've deceived me for 2 years and brought another woman into our home, not to mention you've stopped contributing to the household expenses. The in-laws were shocked by these revelations, and my father-in-law was about to hit Martin, but I stopped him. I don't want to see that. If you're going to do it, please do it where I can't see. The in-laws promised to cover the compensation and Carl's child support on Martin's behalf. Regarding the condo, they agreed to pay me for the portion of the mortgage I had covered up to that point, and the rest would be left to Martin. I don't want to be living in a tainted home. As long as I'm compensated, Martin can do whatever he wants with it. It's likely he'll end up selling it, though at a loss given the current market. Martin lacks the means to keep up with the mortgage payment, so it's inevitable. The reason behind Martin's dismissal became clear. He caused significant losses for a client, not just once, but repeatedly.
I thought it was a sure win, but every trade I thought was solid turned out badly.
According to Martin, he became resentful when I became a freelancer and my income increased. Trying to outdo me, he made unauthorized trades on behalf of his clients, leading to losses. Attempting to cover those losses, he repeated his mistakes until it became unmanageable. Believing he could eventually recover, he couldn't stop. He was unaware the company had caught on and used his meetings with Abigail as a distraction. On that day, he lied about taking a day off to care for me, supposedly ill.
Who would think they'd send a dismissal notice to a house with a sick person?
Who's really being unreasonable here? To think that someone who lied to skip work for a getaway with a woman would say such a thing. His reasoning for the affair was this.
After Carl was born, you stopped paying attention to me.
That's only natural. With a baby, even one's own needs become secondary. There's no way to cater to an adult like a child. Feeling neglected and unamused, he met Abigail at a girls' bar where he was lured in.
Abigail was young and cute, and she listened to everything I said with interest. I regained the confidence I had lost.
When they met, Abigail was just 19, and they became closer after celebrating her 20th birthday.
I bought her anything she wanted. It was cute how she depended on me. You can buy anything for yourself, so you never ask for such things.
To fulfill Abigail's wishes, he stopped contributing financially to our household.
The condo was always your place, and I was just there to sleep, so I thought you should be the one to pay.
I remember him saying something like that, now that I think about it.
If you became an employee again, you wouldn't be at home any more than I am. That would be fair.
So that's why he wanted me to stop working from home and commute instead. Absolutely ridiculous. None of Martin's successive excuses, no matter how I looked at them, made any sense. Yet he framed everything as if it were my fault.
If you had just kept working like before and supported me, none of this would have happened.
Hearing this, even my father-in-law broke down in tears. It was pitiful. But none of that mattered to me anymore. Getting the money I wanted didn't heal the wounds or mean I could forgive him. However, I managed to secure the compensation and child support for Carl that I had requested. I suppose that's as good as it gets. Separately, I sought compensation from Abigail. Fortunately, her parents were decent people and covered the full amount on her behalf. I had threatened to double the payment if they lied, but I decided against it. I had to maintain some decency. We settled with those bounds. I'm sorry. Abigail, appearing before me with her parents, seemed like a completely different person from the drunken one I had encountered. She honestly recounted everything. Coming from the countryside to the city, she was overwhelmed by the difference. Her college peers seemed so stylish and dazzling, and she tried to keep up by working at a girls' bar. I met Martin there, and he told me he was having trouble with his wife, and they were about to divorce. It was just taking time because of their child. I believed him. It appeared Abigail genuinely loved Martin. Martin was handsome and earned well, and he bought me anything I asked for. I was happy because he listened to everything I said. On that day, in my absence, Martin brought Abigail home, suggesting they could live together in this house someday. It seems he wanted to save on the cost of a hotel stay for the night, and Abigail believed him and went along with it. I thought we'd soon be living together here, and I was so happy. But then Martin dismissed me as just a momentary lapse of judgment. Tears welled up in Abigail's eyes as she spoke. That's when I woke up to the reality. I realized I was just being played. Her demeanor didn't seem deceitful at all. But I won't say I was deceived. I knew he was married, and still got involved. It's my responsibility. I'm sorry. She said this, bowing her head along with her parents. The truth is unclear. Perhaps Martin genuinely cared for Abigail at some point, but in the end he chose self-preservation. That was the extent of his regard, it seems. A man who behaves so selfishly, seeking comfort like a child from even his spouse, blaming her for not catering to or elevating him, is not worth remembering for Abigail. Abigail decided to drop out of university and start afresh with her parents in the countryside. I plan to work and repay my parents for what they've covered for me as soon as possible. Though I once despised her, I now hope she finds a straightforward path in life and happiness. Martin was fired and sued for the damages he caused to his company, unable to pay them back. It was inevitable. His absences from work to frolic with Abigail were discovered, and he faced embezzlement charges. It wasn't just causing losses for clients. It was determined he used that money for leisure. He was found guilty, receiving a suspended sentence, but his future remains uncertain. I feel sorry for the good in-laws, but it's a just outcome. I returned to my parents' home, continuing to work while they help with Carl. Despite personal upheavals, my career thrives. Carl's growth is now my solace. I feel no need for a man in my life for now. Yet, just as I hope Abigail finds someone truly trustworthy in her new start, I too wouldn't mind meeting someone good in my life. Life is still long ahead. It's too long to stumble and give up over a single mistake. And I want to show Carl that I can walk forward, facing the future. I am determined not to become someone who, like Martin, takes things for granted and ends up losing everything. For that reason, I will keep looking forward and walk with my head held high, so that I never give up on any form of happiness.